The day my son crossed a boundary that changed everything. Part 1. My name is Lauren, and this story begins with silence. Not the peaceful kind that fills a home with warmth and stillness, but the hollow, aching silence of absence. My husband, David, passed away 9 months ago, and ever since silence has clung to the walls of our home like dust. It's the first thing I hear when I wake up, and the last thing I feel before sleep, if I manage to sleep at all. David was my partner for 22 years. He was solid, patient, and deeply kind. When cancer came like a thief in the night, it didn't knock. It barged in, stealing his strength first, then his voice, and finally, him. Just like that, I was a widow at 45. Our son, Caleb, was only 19. Caleb came home from college 2 months after the funeral. He said he needed a break from everything, his classes, the noise of the city, the heavy expectations. He looked different than I remembered, more grown, more tired, like someone who had seen too much for his age. I welcomed him back without hesitation. Truthfully, I needed someone, anyone, to fill the vast emptiness. Our house had become too large with just me inside it. Every room echoed. I closed off the master bedroom after the funeral. I couldn't bear the smell of David's cologne lingering in the air, or the sight of his slippers still under the bed. I moved into the small guest room down the hall, the one with the squeaky twin bed and creaky floors. I told myself it was temporary. It wasn't. When Caleb returned, I offered him the bigger guest room, the one with the wide windows and view of the backyard, but he declined. He said the smaller room felt more familiar, more comforting. So we ended up sharing the tiny space. 2 beds, tight quarters, not much privacy. But in those first weeks, it felt almost necessary, like we were both clinging to something we couldn't name. At night, we talked more than we had in years. Caleb would sit at the edge of my bed and tell me about his classes, his friends, and even the girl he once loved but who broke his heart. I would listen, occasionally run my fingers through his hair like I used to when he was a child, and for brief moments it felt like we were healing, together. But under that surface was something else, something that neither of us dared speak, out loud. The first time I noticed it was subtle. We had just finished watching an old movie in the living room, one David and I used to love. As the credits rolled, Caleb reached for my hand. It wasn't unusual. We'd always been affectionate. But there was a pause in the way his fingers lingered. A moment too long. When I looked at him, he quickly let go and said he was tired. I nodded, pretending not to notice, and we both retreated to the room we now shared. That night, as we lay in our separate beds, the silence felt different, thicker. My heart raced for reasons I didn't want to explore. I stared at the ceiling, until dawn broke through the blinds. Over the next few days, small things began to shift. Caleb started sitting closer when we talked. He brushed his fingers against mine while handing me a glass of water. He gave me long, searching looks, as if studying my face for something unspoken. I chalked it up to grief. Maybe we were just too close, too broken, clinging to whatever warmth we could find. Then one night, the line between us blurred further. It was storming outside, lightning cracking the sky like a whip. The electricity flickered, and the lights went out completely. I fumbled for candles, lit a few, and sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the rain thrum against the roof. Caleb came in, soaked from grabbing something out of his car, and I handed him a towel. He stood there in the dim candlelight, his shirt clinging to him, hair dripping. And for a moment, I saw not my son, but a man who carried my husband's jawline, my father's solemn eyes, and something else entirely, something raw and present. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded but didn't move. Then, without a word, he sat beside me. The bed dipped under his, Wait, and the silence wrapped around us like a second skin. I should have pulled away. I should have said something. But instead I stayed still, frozen by grief, loneliness, or maybe fear. The candlelight flickered, casting dancing shadows on the wall. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I felt his eyes on me. When he finally stood and moved to his own bed, I exhaled so deeply it surprised me. My hands trembled as I turned off the candle. And though we lay only a few feet apart, I had never felt more distant from him, or closer. I spent the next day trying to bury those feelings in tasks. I scrubbed the kitchen counters, folded laundry I didn't need to fold, rearranged books on shelves just to keep busy. Caleb noticed. He asked if I was all right, and I forced a smile, told him I was just tired. But he knew better. He always did. That weekend, we visited David's grave. It was the first time Caleb had been back since the funeral. He stood beside me in silence, hands in his pockets, wind blowing gently through the trees. I watched his eyes as he stared down at the headstone. There was something unsettled in them, regret, anger. I couldn't tell. "I miss him," he finally said, voice cracking. "I do too," I replied, reaching for his hand. He didn't let go. When we got back home, I started sleeping with my back turned to him. It was subtle, but it was a boundary. I needed to reassert, at least for myself. Caleb noticed. He asked me one night, "Did I do something wrong?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to reassure him. But the truth sat heavy on my chest. We were both unraveling, and I didn't know how to stop it. The worst part was, I couldn't tell anyone. What would I say? That in the thick fog of grief, the only person who truly understood my pain was also the one whose presence now made my heart flutter with confusion. That I feared the lines between comfort and danger had become too blurred. I kept everything inside, even as it slowly consumed me. And then came the night that changed everything.